a lot of people are thinking that basically what happened was that Stellar Blade has censored a lot of their outfits. And I don't really know if this is true, but we'll look at it and we'll see what they say. Hard R was just an excuse to patch outfits in Stellar Blade, and this was version 1.0. So... I mean, yeah, that's definitely a change. It's not even a question. Yeah, let me see if I can find any more pictures of this, because I saw that people were saying this wasn't true. Stellar Blade developer Shift Up acknowledges the outfit censorship. More players provide video evidence of the changes. Wait, what? What? What is this? So this happened today. Stellar Blade censorship acknowledged by Shift Up. The first signs of censorship in Stellar Blade appeared online when users received physical editions of the game and noticed that the Holiday Rabbit outfit was different after the game was patched. This was later thought to be a hoax. Yeah, I thought that was the case too. I thought this was bullshit. And so, this was later thought to be a hoax, possible hoax after footage. Before the day one patch showed the censored outfit. What appears to be the case is that reviewers who received a digital copy of the game were actually playing a 1.01 patch as opposed to the game as it was shipped. This transitional patch between the original game and day one, 1.02, appears that to have what censored the outfits. Okay, the information about the uncensored outfits came from individuals who received their physical copies early and played the game unpatched, at which time it was meant to be difficult to verify. Okay, so there's also footage of the Stellar Blade, director of Stellar Blade, allegedly acknowledging the censorship in the latest patch of the game. When asked, he gives a canned response, claiming that the censored version is the intended version, but in my opinion, this seems like a very Sony response. Okay. Well, that means that they did it on purpose. So, okay, let's assume that's what happened. I mean, to me, it seems odd, right? It does seem odd because, like, I don't really think this one's that much more sexual than this one, right? I mean, they're both pretty sexual. I mean, like, that's just me. So I see this and I'm hearing, like, oh, yeah, one of them is bad, one of them's good. Like, I mean, come on, what is this? But also, like, at the same time, why would you change it like this, right? Because if it's already a certain way, you obviously are going to put in time and investment and, you know, resources into changing the way the character looks. So it's a design choice, not a censor. It's a design choice. I don't think that it is. I don't think that it is a design choice. Do you want to know why I don't think this is a design choice? Because these people made Nikke. Whenever I see a game like this, and then I see censorship like this, I will assume that the developer intended on making it look like this. Because that's what they did with the previous game, and that's also what the original Stellar Blade screenshots showed as well. So, logically, I would assume that the reason why the change happened has something to do with something besides the developer. I think that's basically it. Modesty version is severely punished in Islamic cultures. It's not unique to Christianity whatsoever. There's a lot of people that are about that, okay? It's weird to see this game censored whenever stuff like Baldur's Gate 3 exists. Well, it was the right people complained about it. The truth is that there's like good sexuality and bad sexuality. And the difference between the two is that it's decided by a group of people who have mental disorders. So there's no real way to correctly expect this to happen. And that's it. But why even censor it if there's so many other sexualized outfits? I don't really know. I'm not sure if this is the only instance of censorship or not. Kind of funny, companies are desperately censoring subjective outfits, but we can also still shoot people in the face. Yeah, I've always thought that was odd too. We need a PC version. Nude mod would be better in 3 hours. Yeah, I guess so. No censorship, my ass. Well, yeah, that's her ass, but yeah, you're right. Shift Up definitely went out of their way to promote it that way. I don't really care, but that's lame. It's Sony's fault. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think this is a Sony censorship thing. Sony's weird about this stuff. Yeah, and you also have to keep in mind, like, as far, like, I mean, I don't live in Japan, right? I don't. But, like, Sony is in Japan, and my understanding is that Japanese culture is quite modest. So this could also be a factor as well. I think that there's a lot of different elements of this that are involved. And so Sony moved to California. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe that is the case. Like, I feel like a lot of Korean culture is, like, very, very pro-sexuality. And, well, they're pro really hot girls in games, okay? Like, let's be honest. That's the way it is. And so I don't think that's a bad thing at all, but, you know, at the same time, there it is. They ban porn? Yeah, sure. Japan censoring is more about gore? Yeah, sometimes. Sony's been censoring games for a long time. This isn't new. I don't get why people are just freaking out about this stuff. I think the reason why people are upset about this with Stellar Blade explicitly, the reason why is because it was marketed as a game that was kind of, you know, very sexual. Like, that was, I mean, obviously, like, the character's sex appeal was a huge reason why people were interested or initially, like, kind of found out about the game. And I'm not saying that, like, that's the only thing about the game, but what I'm saying is that that was a huge selling factor for the game. So, yeah, it's a disservice to the fandom. Yeah, a little bit, right? Everyone's offended that everyone's offended. What an ironic world to live in. Well, I don't really think that's fair, right? Of course people are offended because other people changed their content without any sort of consensus. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty fair, right? I mean, like, if somebody comes into your space and then changes things that you had, then I think anybody would be offended. And I also think, so this is kind of like the issue with a conversation like this, is that a lot of people will say, and I think it's very valid, that who cares because the outfit's still sexual and it's not that big of a change. But I also think that that's true in the opposite way. Because if who cares if it's still sexual, then why did you change it? I don't think people should accept any level of censorship at all for games. Maybe not any level. I think that there are a few things that, you know, you would want to censor out or whatever. But whenever something is being minimized or changed in order to appeal to a group of people, you know, it really generally isn't the right decision. And I think censorship, like, you know, for example, like the hard R thing versus like the changing it to crime, I feel like this is pretty reasonable because it wasn't intended, right? Like, the Korean developers did not, you know, they didn't get together in the office and be like, how can we say something, like, really, really, like, subtly that's bad about black people? Ah, geez. Okay, all right. So, Kim, do you want to go first? Okay, let's go around the room and get some brainstorming for this, right? I bet this didn't happen. Yeah, I don't think that happened. But what I do think might have happened is they just picked out a random graffiti word, they put it on there, it's a weird, you know, like, thing, and it's like two different levels of, like, American fucking political nuance, and so they didn't know it and they messed it up, right? So, like, it was not intended. They did not try to make this offensive, but they did try to make this attractive. So I think that's really what the difference is you're seeing one thing that was actually a genuine accident, like 99% chance, and then the other thing is it's an intentional change of intentions. So, yeah. A group of people complaining, they probably won't buy the game in the first place. Yeah, definitely. And they'll always complain about that kind of stuff. As a European, I knew that hard R was a racist thing. Yeah, I know, but as a European, you're also still in the American sphere. And, you know, like, if you're Korean, you're completely outside of American culture, Western culture. Like, it's another level of disconnect, right? So, yeah. You see Ackman's video on Stellar Blade? No, I haven't seen that. Yeah, but anyway, I do think that this is something that happened because of Sony. I don't think that the developer did this on purpose. The reason why is because they also make Nikke, and Nikke is extremely sexual as well. That's basically the entire reason why people play the game. And so, what are the odds? I think Sony probably pushed censorship for this for some reason. Is it a response to Twitter Andy's malding? We can't really know that. It's impossible to be sure. So, yeah. Bro, who cares? Well, couldn't you say that to the people that are, like, so this is really the problem, right? And so I want you to, like, I want to see if I can get your perspective on this, right? Because you say, bro, who cares? You're right. But can't you use that logic to say, like, why would you change it? Like, Because I feel like you could say the same thing. Because, like, if you say who cares, then why are you changing it if who cares? Like, as I said, and I know there were even some people that were upset about this, what I said, but I actually am okay with censorship in terms of sexualizing, like, underage characters. I do actually agree with that. And I know that people might disagree, and that's fine, but that's my viewpoint. But with anything like this, I mean, she's an adult, and so this is not even a factor. It's not part of the conversation. No, I mean, why talk about it? The reason why I talk about it is I think because a lot of people don't like the idea of having their games be co-opted by people who are invaders into the space in a lot of cases. They have no real interest or investment in the games or in the content. And then they come into the space and then they try to change the space to make it reflect their values. So wouldn't it be frustrating for you if it was something that you were a fan of, that then people came into that group of people and then changed the thing that you liked in a way that was not authentic to what it was? I mean, wouldn't that bother you? Jesus Christ. Okay, so you don't care about something that's being discussed. Okay, well, I guess now everything has to be changed because of this. Lucky timeout? Yeah, Jesus Christ, who cares? Yeah. He doesn't care because it doesn't affect him, and over to your whole argument? Yeah, that's because people like that. Again, I've said this before, most people's values, principles, and ethics and everything are completely self-referential. There's no logic or principle to any of them. And so that's just another example of it. Wasted your time? Who wasted everybody's time? And I apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, I think that a lot of people see something like this and, like, let's be real, guys. This isn't really a big deal. But if it's not a big deal, then why change it? And I think that's what the problem is. And I think that a lot of gamers and people that are, just in general, fans of different types of media are sick of people coming into their spaces, changing the way that their products work and changing their culture, and then telling them not to care that the change has happened. It's intellectually dishonest. It's patronizing. And it insults the intelligence of the people that were part of it. Because if it really didn't matter, then you wouldn't be changing it. So it clearly matters. Again, give them an inch and they'll eventually take a mile. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is a huge L for Sony. Definitely a huge L for Stellar Blade. I mean, I don't... again, this isn't something that would make me, like, not play the game. Like, if this character was a big guy, like, I would be playing Stellar Blade. I don't really give a shit about it. And I think that censorship is pretty common. But if people don't buy the game or aren't interested in it because of this, I could totally understand that and respect it. I definitely could. The real reason why they censor these costumes whenever you have Cyberpunk and Baldur's Gate 3 on the same console? Well, I'm not really sure exactly, like, what the difference is. I mean, I can't really be certain about what the... what do you call it? Like, what the actual reasoning is. Why is it only Asian games? Well, I'll explain why. So basically, this is like the American, like, sexualization, psychology, I think. And you guys can, like, people can disagree on this, but this is just, like, my read on it. My general read on sexuality is that Americans view, and I'm talking about, like, the liberal, like, leftist people that are on Twitter that are, like, tweeting about this game killing women, right? Like, I'm not talking about normal people. I'm talking about the terminally online people that think that this is a battleground for their worldview. And so, basically what happens is that in their mind, they view any time that you sexualize female characters and not male characters as it being a bad thing. And the reason why Baldur's Gate 3 and what was the other example? Cyberpunk 2077 are different is because they sexualize male and female characters. So that's I think that that's the logic that you can build this off of to expect. No, I'm not saying that they're right. I'm just saying I think this is the rationale for their thinking and what they're saying. Because whenever I think about the games that are sexualizing characters, most of the time, the ones that people complain about are the ones that asymmetrically only sexualize one gender. And realistically, guys, it's 99% girls, right? It's girls that are being sexualized because these games are made to appeal to guys. So yeah, I think that's what the difference is. Now, do I agree with this? No, I don't. I think it's ridiculous. The idea that you know, people aren't able to sexualize a certain gender. Like, why is it a problem that there's a game made for guys that like looking at hot girls? There's nothing wrong with that. And if you think that there is something wrong with it, there's probably something wrong with you. So that's basically the way that I see it. I find it odd how these weirdos have such a problem with the game, but not a peep when it was made for other games like, what's this here? Other games like Bayonetta. Oh, they did. Bayonetta, like, so this is like a 10 years ago thing, but like about 10 years ago or so, there was like a really big, I guess like there's like this girl, like, I think her name was like Anita Sarkeesian, and she had, this was like Gamergate era, and this was right whenever she had like this show, it was called Feminist Frequency, and she would actually use like Bayonetta as an example of like sexualization of female characters. And so the reason why Bayonetta isn't used as an example anymore is because they simply lost the culture war on that, and people like the game, and so that's it. So it's the same thing with Nier Automata. Whenever they released 2B, people were complaining about that too. So the idea that, oh, this just started happening is not true. The reason why those characters are accepted are because they've been normalized, because they've existed for so long. So that's the reason why. I'm disappointed in someone caving to them, even if it's for money, even if they don't consume the content anyway. Yeah, and you should never, and this is really one thing that I hope that people learn, is that you can never make people that are unhappy happy, and you can never make people happy who wield power through unhappiness. So a lot of times people like complaining about things, and the fact that they're complaining about them or unhappy about them gives them a sense of power in like the in the culture, because obviously, oh, I don't like this, this offends me, now it needs to be changed. So it is in their best interest to stay offended because it maintains their power balance, right? It maintains their power structure. So the problem with people like this and caving to people that get offended is that if there isn't a rational reason for it, there will never be a point where this ends, because they don't want it to end, because this is what they get out of it. It's all a positive for them. Who's they in this particular case? They, I mean, I would say in this specific circumstance, like, I would say that any time that, give an inch to take a mile, yeah, anybody who wants to come into, actually, it's not even a day, it's generally people that complain about things all the time. Like, just in general, like, have you ever had a person in your life that always has a problem with something? Like a permanent squeaky wheel of a human being that just can never stop complaining or having an issue with something? Not anymore. Yeah, exactly. Complaining ass bitches. That's what you call them, right? And so with people like that, what ends up happening is that they will never stop complaining, because that's the way they get attention. Have you guys ever had that happen? Where it's like, oh, the car is too cold, the ride is too bumpy, you get to the restaurant, they don't have the food I want, the food doesn't taste good. There's never going to be a point where they're happy. It's exhausting. Yeah, it's the most mentally and emotionally exhausting type of person to deal with in the entire world. So much more blow black than previous examples, though. Oh, the Stellar Blade? Yeah, well, I think that's because of the previous examples. It's because people are tired of it happening. It's complaining mixed with politics. Well, ultimately, a lot of things are complaining mixed with politics. I mean, I would say a lot of things. Even the majority of things are, right? Complaining is just boring people trying to come up with a conversation. Yeah, definitely. But anyway, I hope that Sony and the makers of Stellar Blade know that you will never make these people happy, because in being happy, they give up their power, and nobody likes to give up their power. So making this change will not satisfy them. It will not improve the way that they view your game. The only thing that it does is alienate the existing players that you already have and the people that were interested in the game. It diminishes your creative, like, integrity. It makes it feel like... I think it makes the game feel like anytime you see something, and this is what happens, right? And I think this is actually true with a lot of things. So a lot of video games, and this is kind of like a bigger issue, is that a lot of video games don't respect escapism. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that, for example, if you can open the store of a game inside of the game, that damages the escapism of the game, because you're regularly interfacing with real life through the game. It's the same thing as seeing somebody's Twitch name next to, like, their character name on something like Fortnite. Fortnite obviously is a much different game, and it's not really built for escapism the same way as an RPG is, but I hope you get my point. And so what ends up happening is that I think people get into, they start playing these games, whether it's something like Baldur's Gate 3 or Stellar Blade or World of Warcraft. I think World of Warcraft is a great example. So in World of Warcraft, every time that you see one of the little pictures on the wall that's a basket of fruits, it reminds you of all of this like real life context and connotation, right? And I think that if that happens enough, people don't really have the same type of escapism that they would have whenever they go and they play a game like something like Elden Ring, for example, or Final Fantasy XIV, where explicitly the store is not in the game. And you can't access it through the game client. That's why Dragon's Dogma 2 was good? Yes, exactly. And the entire game is in the world of the game. And I think that what changes like this do is they remind the player that they are playing a commercial product for profit that was changed in a way that is inauthentic. And I think also it just hurts the escapism of the game, because whenever you see something like this and you know, like, here's a good example too. Whenever you see a magic trick, it's magic trick. But whenever it's explained to you, then it's just a technique. And it's very hard to see the magic in something once the man behind the machine has been revealed. And I think that this is the same thing with escapism as in games. And having a level of escapism in games is something that, like, I remember this is something that happened to me whenever I played Dragon's Dogma 1, is that whenever I was playing the game, there was no store stuff, there was no pop-ups, there was no battle pass. It was just like this raw game. And I like the idea, like, I wasn't listening to any other music. I wasn't really listening to like a podcast on the second monitor. I was just playing and immersing myself in the game. Baldur's Gate 3 might be like that too. I haven't played it a lot, so I'm not sure. But it was really like kind of an eye-opening experience for how much games don't respect immersion anymore. And they don't respect the willing suspension of disbelief and the escapism that I think in a lot of cases they're designed to provide. So whenever you see changes like this, I think that they do hurt that escapism. And they do make the games feel more shallow. I know this is a crazy thing to say, but I genuinely believe it. And I think that it's true with Stellar Blade. I think it's true with World of Warcraft. And I think it's true with any other game that has like a bunch of like Suicide Squad that has a bunch of pop-ups and stuff like that. Hollow Knight did that for me. Yeah, exactly. So whenever I see this happen, it's not crazy, it's correct. Yeah. Whenever I see this happen, I think that it does really hurt the immersion. Playing devil's advocate here? Is it possible? Nope, no devil's advocate. If you don't really believe something, then I don't want to hear your argument. I want to disagree with you and argue about something I don't even believe in. Don't waste my time. It's really baffling how serious these days people are taking games. It's meant for fun and meant as escape for the real world for an hour. Just stop taking everything so serious and stop talking Crybaby. Yeah, I know. Stop taking Crybaby seriously. You're right. You're totally right. People nowadays think of games as a chore or achievement that needs to be completed instead of it just enjoying the game as it should be. Well, goal-based gameplay. Yes, I think that you're definitely right. It happens a lot, man. They apparently censored some gore. It's less bloody now. It's auto-update. It has less blood. I don't understand. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, again, if it did censor gore, and, you know, obviously that's more of a Japanese thing, I think that definitely goes even farther in the argument that I think this was done 100% by Sony. But, you know, we're never really going to know the answer to that. So this is just me guessing. But anyway, yeah, that's what I think about it.